right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. See this? This is my boomstick! You got that? Now I swear, the next one of you primates even touches it. Yeah!
Greetings everyone, and welcome to Outriders New Horizons. In this video I'm going to share with you a bonus firepower Devastator build using the shotguns as a primary weapon of choice. It was always something I wanted to try, however, thanks to the timer restrictions, the shotguns unfortunately, they're still not the fastest option, but in my opinion it's the most fun to run with. And now with the removal of the timers on the expeditions, it's something nice to try it because I love to go close and personal and one-shot most of the enemies using a very powerful weapon. Before we have a look at the armor and mods, I have to mention that I tried the statue set, however I do believe it's still bugged because I kept losing enough firepower where I got hit and I didn't find very interesting doing so. And I took another approach and use another set that I originally used for a hybrid skill damage build. However, because it was reworked a little bit, it has become more powerful and I quite love it for bonus firepower builds, and that's the Deathproof set. Beside the 90% cooldown reduction for the Bolter Dash, we now get a 15% increased firepower based on our armor, and we are going to be armor capped thanks to a few nice mods we get from the armor. And we're going to use the chest, the head and the legs for the Deathproof because those pieces have bonus firepower, and we're going to use epic gloves and boots that also have bonus firepower, close range damage, and I do prefer cooldown reduction, although the Deathproof set doesn't have any. We just need enough to reduce enough the cooldown for the other skills we're going to use and to make Bolter Dash less than 2 seconds. For the armor mods, we mainly focus on the Bolter Dash and increase our damage not based on firepower but based on percentage, so we have Primal Weakness, Primal Armor, Primal Chain Gun, Primal Gutting, Primal Knucklebuster, Personal Space, Tainted Blood, Vampiric Mag, Damage Absorber and Circle of Power. Primal Gutting and Vampiric Mag are a must. You should never change those two modes, because without those, the pump action shotguns only have 24 bullets and you will run out of ammo very fast. So let's see why the death proof set is very awesome. With only one boulder dust use, we gain 85% armor reduction in case we have the proper armor pieces. I don't have max armor for everything, so I'm very close, 84.2, and 342,000 firepower, which is using a weapon below 90,000. So if you find a god roll weapon, this can go even higher. And because we have the primal chain gun, the mod, we can get more than 600,000 firepower. I do believe this can go to 700,000 with a god roll weapon and hitting more targets. So as you can see, the stats, the defensive and offensive are very good. Moving on to the weapons of choice, before we mention the primary weapon of choice, the secondary should be the guillotine or the Anomoi shotgun with morning winds and radiation splash. The sidearm, although I haven't used it anyway, I do have something with Shadow Comet, just in case I want some extra DPS. Let's move on to the primary weapon of choice. I do recommend to try the true Boomsticks, which are the pump action shotguns. And there are a couple of choices. Anomaly Effigy is the best for AoE because of the primary mode. Golem Slim is the best for extra survivability against hordes of enemies. However, is very bad against bosses, 1 versus 1 with Moloch or the Merchant. You don't have extra survivability when you run out of enemies. Darkness Charmer is the best weapon of choice in my opinion for both DPS and survivability, and that's what I recommend to run for it. And I avoid completely running the breach variants, such as the Airy Master or similar, because they have very low ammo count and very low DPS compared to the standard Boomsticks. So my weapon of choice, I do recommend to start with the Darkness Charmer if you have it, with a default mode that it has, because it works very well with the Vampiric Mag. Every time you eventually reload, you will get the grand opening. And I do recommend a couple of choices for the secondary morgue. Dark Sacrifice is a little risky, but it offers the highest DPS possible. And let's look at the other options we have. Scrap Grenade is one of the best because it also procs with Vampiric Mag. Both Kinetic Storm and Claymore Torrent are more reliable than the others, and Shadow Comet is a staple. And these are a few mods I do recommend to avoid because I have tested and not working very well, such as the Ultimate Damage Link because we have very low RPM, the Killing Spree resets because we will switch our weapon for the morning winds. In case you don't switch your weapon is good, but in case you have to switch it, it will reset very frequently. And Body Snatcher, I had very high hopes for that, but it's very slow. Before we move on to the skills and the talents, I have to mention something. The sad truth is that unfortunately the automatic shotguns, and specifically the Death Shield, is superior in performance. It's more reliable. It has the fortress that will make us armor cap no matter what we do, increase our resistance to damage, and the ultimate damage link is the best mod you can have on the automatic shotguns. It works very well, the damage will be crazy, insane, and it's very fast, reliable, and it has the weapon life leech that we want for survivability. The Funeral Pyre also works very well because it has Shadow Comet, you can add Kinetic Storm, or you can add ultimate damage bullets once again, but it doesn't do as much damage compared to the Death Shield. In case you have to choose between the two, I do prefer the Death Shield, and it's much better against bosses, so you can do this. You can run all the expedition, let's say with a pump action shotgun if you like it, and switch to the Death Shield when you face too many enemies or bosses, because you will have a much easier time dealing with them. Moving on to the skills, you have to go with Boulder Dust, Golem just to use it in case you run into difficult situations, and any skill you like. My personal choice is the Gravity Leap, because I can easily catch up to specific enemies. However, you can also use Endless Mass to gather enemies together in case to do a little better AoE. Tremor is a good option for survivability, and Reflect Bullets is for a specific spec that will give you 45% extra firepower, although I personally don't like to use this rotation. In case you like, you will get a very steady 45% increased firepower using the Reflect Bullets. Moving on to the talents, this is the main spec. We avoid getting the Stone Circle, we don't need it because we will be very close to the enemies due to the shotguns, Heirloom armor, we don't need it. We're going to be armor cut or 84%, 84 point something, so it's not necessary. We focus to take everything that increases the damage for the shotguns. Dry them out is a little unnecessary, unless you have weapon life, it doesn't work very well, compared to Into the Fray that makes a huge difference, that gives us 15% extra mitigation on everything. For the second spec, let's say we do a minor change. We replace the Into the Fray with Champion and add Reflect bullets into the rotation. You can cancel them out and spam the skill and get a 45% increased firepower. I personally don't like it because I prefer to use a couple of more boulder dust instead to gain more benefit. However, if you like to do this rotation, you can try it out yourself. In case you want to further increase your DPS and sacrifice survivability, you can replace the Circle of Power with Captain Hunter, which is my opinion the best option, or you can go with Stare into the Barrel. Sharp Eye is very good, probably better than Stare into the Barrel. However, I don't like to play with aiming down the sights using this build, that's why I avoid it. Now moving on to the rotation per se, there is no such thing as a perfect rotation. You use Boulder Dash because you get double armor, firepower, you bleed the enemies, and then you shoot to kill. That's where you can replenish your ammo, you can kill them easily, you can heal yourself, and you will also just have to save the golem against elites or many enemies or bosses. Here are a few tips when running the build. You don't have to aim down the sights when you're facing mobs, you can one-shot most of them unless they are elites, bosses or alphas. Use your secondary weapon to inflict very high damage and vulnerability to elites, and you can one or two shot them. For example, with the Darkness Chamber, with the Default Mob and Dark Sacrifice, I can one-shot most of the elites using this combo. You will always have to bleed out the enemies, either using the Boulder Dash or melee attacks to refund your ammo and get some damage increase, otherwise you will run out of ammo and that can complicate things. And don't forget that Boulder Dash can interrupt the targets, stumble them a little bit, and can be ended early if needed, so you won't run past your targets. In conclusion, this is a very fun build to run, it has very high survivability, it's very fun to play, it one-shots most of the normal mods, you don't need to aim down the sights most of the time, it's easy to maximize your firepower, your defenses, because you don't have to keep up Golem for example, and can cover distances safe if you spam Boulder Dash, because don't forget, while we're charging, we have a 65% resistance against everything. Of course, there are a few downsides when using the build. It's slower compared to other builds because you have to chase the human enemies that will hide behind cover. Pump action shotgun, it's average or bad against bosses. This can be ignored by using the Death Shield or the Dark Chamber with specific mods. The Dark Sacrifice and the default mod are actually very good. Be prepared to get knocked back by everyone and everything. You will be constantly annoyed by this. I have been. Try to dodge it, especially when you see the queue from bigger enemies, by using a melee or Boulder Dash. Otherwise, you will get knocked back very frequently and you have to just deal with it. And that was it for today's video. I really hope you like it and share my passion for Boomsticks that one-shot most of the enemies. And yes, the sad truth, the Death Shield is the best option for now. I do hope in the near future the developers just give a little more love to the pump action shotguns, especially the ammo count, the damage, or some mods. I would prefer to see something very extraordinary that will just deal with bosses quite easier and help you survive. But in the meantime, feel free to use any of the combinations I suggested to you. There will be more upcoming videos for builds for all the classes. Hopefully now I have max level for Devastator and Pyromancer, but I hope in the near future to level up all classes and do builds for everything, so feel free to like if you liked, and you can subscribe to stay tuned for more upcoming videos for Outriders and other video games. And as always, I wish you all a wonderful day.